everybody, welcome back to another video. On this channel we've talked a lot about a bunch of different cameras that have felt, I guess, more standard in these days. So SLRs, rangefinders, things that look like your typical camera. But today we're going to go outside of that a little bit and look at a folding camera. So folding cameras have their own sort of nuance to them, I guess I'll say. That the form factor is a real boon for this camera. I first of all love the chrome plating on this one. This is an Agfa Billy Record. And so this camera here has just a really nice look to it. I love the size factor of it, and I think it has just such cool detail if we look at that. But of course that's not all what we're here to look at. We want to see what the inside looks like. So what we have to do is flip up this little tab, and then we're able to pull out the camera. And here you're able to see what this camera looks like, and I just think it is like such a beautiful camera. So let's take a closer look at this camera. I'll show you how it works and a couple pictures I've taken with it. And here we are with our Agfa Billy Record. So as we look at this camera just on the outside, you can see we have a tripod socket here on the bottom. This is the older 3/8 tripod socket. I think that's the correct number. Anyway, it's the older, larger socket for tripods, so you'd have to get an adapter, or I mean, I guess you could probably find a tripod that is that big. But I have an adapter which I've used for some of my other cameras. Here is your wind knob and also a film release knob. Here on the back we have the door that we're able to view the film back through, and we can just slide that open, slide that shut. Up top here we have our sport finder, which again I think is always very comically named, but you know, good to have. And then here we are. There's this cute little handle. I would not advise on a camera this old probably carrying it by this handle, but it's, you know, looks nice. It actually, the way that it folds up and down is very sleek. I feel like it is well engineered. Now under that handle here, you can see that there's these two little nubs here, and those are how we open the camera back. So let's do that first before we even look at the lens and such. So if we pop this open, you're able to see this is the inside of a folding camera. Super, super stark, as you can see. I think this is cool. There's an Agfa Film B2 isochrome film sticker over here. Who knows when the last time that was available. I assume it's been a while. And then in here, you're able to see the general sort of assembly of this camera. So on this side here, we have right here where you just pull this up and you're able to drop your film on. You see the way that that pops out. You're able to slide your medium format roll on here, clip this into place, drop it down, stretch it across. And when it comes to this side, you're able to just crank the film on. And once it's wound, you're good. You're able to shut this, and then you can go from there. Now, when I first got this camera, it was described on eBay as kind of like as is, not really recommended for shooting. They had said that there was haze in the lens. And so what I had done is I had actually taken the rear element out here and put the camera on bulb mode and had sort of washed out some of the haze, used, you know, some cleaner. Now the tricky thing is that I actually don't know for sure if I did it or if this camera came like this or what, but we'll get to it. Some of the photos that I get of this camera are probably atypical, and I think I actually like that about this, but it's worth mentioning that I don't think I get normal results out of this camera. As you're able to see in here, this is all like a fabric on the inside of the folding mechanism. So it's really pretty simple again here, all things considered. So let's close the back of the camera. So something to mention is that this camera is all like fabric actually on the outside here. And so right here you can see there's a little blemish, and that was caused by me throwing this in my backpack with other cameras. And because of that, it scraped up on another camera's body or lens or something like that. And it sort of dinged this. And so I am a little disappointed in that. But That's why I managed to find online a case for this camera. It looks just like this, and it helps keep it protected if I'm bringing it out and about, because I don't think I realized how fragile that was. So I'm glad it was only just that little ding there. But let's take a look inside the camera and get to know it a little better. So as we pull it out, we have here our Agfa Anastigmat Igistar, and it's an f7.7 lens. So you don't see that every day. That's a very interesting sort of aperture setting for a camera. Up here you can see our 3 shutter speeds, well 4 really, that we have: 100, 50, 25, and bulb. Here is the viewing mechanism, and then right here we have a way that we're able to change the focus. So this is from 5 meters to infinity, or 16 feet to infinity. And if we pull this over, you see it just click the lens over. This is 2 to 5 meters, or from 6 feet to 16 feet. And if you want to release that, you just sort of pull up on it a little bit, and then it will go up from there. Now the operation of the camera is actually quite simple. When you want to take a picture, this is your shutter right here, and you just go like this. And that's taking a picture. So you're able to really quite easily do that. Set to 50, set to 25, set to bulb. And for bulb, there's this little latch here that you're able to press down, which will hold the camera open. And then you can lift it back up when you're done. So if you find that you need to hold the camera down for a long period of time with the shutter open, that's how I cleaned this camera. That's an option. It's not something I would probably use ever otherwise. But yes, you're able to set between 7.7, 11, and 16 on the aperture down here. What's cool about this camera too is that it can be used multiple ways. You can set it on its side here and either use the sport finder this way if you wanted to, and shoot it this way. That way you would have your landscape style photos. You would just have to have your finger down here to use the shutter, like so. Or you can obviously shoot vertically, which I think is actually quite neat that this camera sort of all the way back in the 1930s, this camera was thinking about vertical photography, so that, you know, is a benefit to us all this time later. When you're getting one of these cameras, you have to be careful because these bellows can sort of dry rot. They can have light leaks on them, and sometimes they might just be here for a good time and not a long time. And I totally understand the possibility that this might become a camera that will live on a shelf for me. One thing with my camera specifically is that the viewfinder up top is missing. There's a piece of glass that goes on top that you're able to look down into. You can still kind of use it and look down in and see out. I actually tend to use the sport finder a lot on this camera, that if I'm going to take a picture vertically, I just set it up like this and hold it vertically. But yeah, again, you're able to turn this viewfinder if you wanted to look down into it. It's sort of a waist level finder, but yeah, it's a very small finder there. When you're done with this camera, you're able to close it just by pressing gently on the hinges here. It will click, and then you're able to very gently and gingerly close your camera. Now, what's the idea behind using this camera? Well, there's some interesting sort of features to it, and one thing you may have noticed if you looked at the back is that this camera shoots medium format film, and this is a strip of medium format film. Here though, you're able to see this is a 6x6 negative, so it's just sort of a small square, right? You can see right here the small square that is a 6x6 negative. Now let's compare that to what this camera shoots, which is a 6x9 negative. So you can see how much larger that square is. It's massively, massively bigger than your 6x6. I think this camera actually, so you only get 8 shots out of a camera like this because it's 6x9. but you're able to, technically 6x9 has a higher resolution than say a 6x6 negative does. The curious thing is that on this camera, because of whatever's happening with the lens on it, whether it's a reversed element or something's come unfixed inside of it, it's hard to say for sure what this camera might have looked like before. So I'll show you a couple pictures on screen here of the pictures that I've gotten with this camera. I think they're really neat. I think they're really interesting because they are very dreamy. They have such a crazy sort of astigmatism that happens that in the center it's sharp, and then everything out and away from that swirls like crazy. And it actually is a very particular camera to use in this sense, because if it's not centered, like if your subject is not centered in the frame, it's going to not really be attractive, I think. I think what I realized is that this camera benefits significantly from having centered sort of composition, and then that lets the swirl be a bit more the star of the show on the outer part of the frame. Once you start bringing things into the outer part of the frame, they're going to come so out of focus that if that's your main subject, it will lose sort of its ability to stand out, I think. So basically what you do is, yeah, once you have your film in, you take your shot, you wind the camera, and then you take your picture, you look through, you would wind till your next shot, close it, and at the end of your roll, as with many medium format film cameras, the film will completely pass through the camera, and you'll be able to open up the camera again from the back here. Do that. So your film will have totally been taken up here. You're able to pull this lever out, and then that means you can retrieve your take-up spool from inside here. And that's really it for this camera in terms of operation. So would I recommend this camera? If you're someone who wants this camera for aesthetics, absolutely. Like, no question, having this on your shelf, I love the look of this camera. It's beautiful. Like, you can just imagine setting it on your shelf like that and letting it be a wonderful display piece if it, you know, had other issues. But I don't really like display pieces because I have way too many things in my apartment. So I tend to want things that work. And so this one does work, but in a very artistic and sort of very specific way. So that's where I just have to, I think, be careful when using this camera, because I need to know what I'm shooting, how I intend to shoot it, and what my desired effect is. So this is a very intentional camera for me to use, because I'm going to get a very artsy effect, and the fact that I'm only getting 8 pictures on a roll of medium format film, it's also not a cheap camera to use. So you use some of the other 6x9 cameras like the Fuji 690 cameras, awesome cameras, the Texas Leica, as some people call the one version of it. People talk about the resolution of that film, and it's awesome because you're able to get these big 6x9 negatives and then see so much more detail in your shots. But on something like this where I'm not getting detail, and something like this where I'm getting very few photos, and you're not necessarily going to sit there and take and retake photos like you might on 35mm, where just in case someone blinked, okay, let's take a backup shot. Like, you're going to burn through film really fast on this. And so that has been something that has made me shoot this a little less, but I want to still make sure I give it its due, because I love the look of it. I think it's really fun, and it's an eye-catching thing to use in public, that's for sure. But I think it's something that you have to really strongly find your, at least for my version, I'll say. You have to strongly find your subject, know your framing, and operate accordingly, because if there's not a strong subject, it's going to look blurry, it's going to look smushy, it's not going to be attractive. We'll take one more second here. I'll open up the back of the camera so that we can see, now that the bellow has been extended out, what it looks like. Now you can see down in there, and if we flip the shutter, it's such a simple mechanism, the shutter on this camera. Like, it is amazingly simple. It's just a little thing that flips in and out of the way. I will say there's also a shutter release option on this camera, so in certain instances that could make sense. Your shutter release cable can go right in there. And so that way you're able to, you could set it up with its stand here if you wanted. I believe this is a second tripod socket on the bottom, but I've been unable to say for sure because I don't see necessarily like a defined screw on this. So if you're someone who has this camera and knows, I would assume that that's another tripod socket, but I am not so sure as opposed to, say, this one here. So anyway, guys, that's all we have for today. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed getting to take a look at this camera. This camera is something that I got just off eBay because I was really interested in a folder and I loved the chrome decal design on it, and I was interested in seeing what medium format was like on other sorts of cameras. But if you like this video, make sure to give it a like. If you had any questions, let me know in the comments, and if not, we'll see you next time. Bye.